We will all be free. We'll be free. Free. We'll all be free. We'll be free. Free. We'll all be free. Yes, we'll be free. Free. We'll all be free.
Ricky just showed up and I said, hey, I didn't really ask him. I just said, you're singing with me, right?
Yeah.
Well, Doug Patchett, everybody.
That is Joel. Thank you, Ricky. Good to have you with us. That is one of our favorite things. For people who didn't know what they're going to say, I want to join in with you. That's what we're doing here. My name is Doug Patchett. We're with a group called Vote Common Good. Maybe you saw those buses out there. We're traveling around the country. We're the group of people right now. There's 6 of us. We live all over. Joel, who you just met there, lives in New York. I live in Minneapolis. Rob lives in Arkansas. Donnie lives in Arkansas. Tim lives in Oregon. Beth lives both in Northern California and in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You can ask her about how that story sort of works out. And then tomorrow we have another group of people joining us when we go to Atlanta from Texas. And then there's going to be a guy from Michigan joining us, and another person from Minnesota joining us, and another guy from Michigan joining us. There's going to be a group of 15 of us that'll be traveling together for a few days. And then some people peel off, and then new people peel on. And we're going to be doing that all over the country, all the way through Election Day. So we're super glad to be here because we've worked really hard to have an event in Nashville, Tennessee, friends. I'll tell you, we were supposed to be here 2 weeks ago, and one of those big, beautiful buses had a little issue, just like we all do. You're like, you live in one of those buses, you just feel like you're one with it. And sometimes it just needs a little downtime. And it was in Des Moines, Iowa, and the little sweetie just said, I just need a new fuel pump. And I just can't go without a new fuel pump. So we couldn't be here a couple of weeks ago, so we rescheduled. And then we decided we'd reschedule on a weekend when there would be a hurricane. So we like to say, Vote Common Good Hurricane Edition, Nashville, Tennessee. And then had to scramble around to move from a park where we were going to be an hour earlier today, and then had the good people from this wonderful church say that we could have a little get together here tonight. So we're so glad. And that second bus just joined us. So we're now have that second bus out there. And the reason we now have 2 buses is so we can take you with us. So this is going to be a Harvey Milk moment, and if you know that reference, good for you. We are here to recruit you. But we're not just here to recruit you to be part of this effort with us and to travel with us. If you're up for it, then we'll talk about that more later. But we're here to recruit you into a movement of the common good. What we do at Vote Common Good is we try to help all kinds of people, but especially religious voters, who may have been given a political identity wedded to their religion identity. I don't know, they just started becoming a certain kind of Christian, maybe a Catholic or an evangelical, the 2 groups we work most with. And they didn't know that it was like pulling up to a Wendy's and ordering the number 2 and realizing it just comes with a side of fries. Yeah. Their religion just brought to them a political identity. They didn't know that you could say at the Wendy's, hey, could you throw in a side salad instead of the fries? Which they will do, by the way. It's a great little trick. No one ever does it because we all like the fries. That's another issue altogether. But a lot of people feel like their political identity and their religion identity came as a package deal. And they feel stuck. And then things start to change. Maybe they change. Maybe they grow. Maybe their faith expands. Maybe the political party that they felt attached to all of a sudden was taken over by a group of people that they feel they have nothing in common with. But they don't know if they can connect to the other political party because that feels like a group of people that they felt were always the opposite of them and they don't know what to do. And so people feel really confused. We know that's true because a lot of us come from traditions where that was our own experience, or that was the experience of people in our churches or in our communities or our friends or our family members. So what we do at Vote Common Good is we help those people who want to separate those 2 political identities, their political identity from the religious identity, so they can feel a greater sense of agency, a greater sense of choice. Because a lot of people don't know they have a choice. So some days when I'm being really snarky and people say, so what do you do? And I say, we travel around the country and try to make sure Donald Trump is never president of the United States again. Because deep in my heart, that's what I want to happen. That's the truth I want to be true. And they say, well, how do you do that? And we say, well, we help religious voters. Because it turns out if Donald Trump doesn't get 81% of white evangelicals in 5 states, he can't become the next president of the United States. He didn't get that number in 2020. He did in 2016. We're going to do everything we can to make sure he doesn't happen in 2024. In fact, we want that number to be the lowest number of white evangelical support for a Republican candidate since 1980, when Jimmy Carter was the Democratic nominee. And if that happens, we think that could begin to break the jinx that the MAGA movement has on the Republican Party. Now, I've become I voted for Republicans in my life. I say this with full confidence now, not just as a confession, but just as it's true. I voted for George Bush twice. But I don't think I can find myself to ever vote for a Republican again. Just personally, I don't know. I've done the math on how long I got, and I'm like, I think I'm pretty bitter. I'm not sure I can get there. But that's not the goal for everyone. For some people, they just need the Republican Party to come back home. For some people, they just need to be done. We could spend all night talking about Donald Trump, and if you want to climb on that bus with us, I'd love to. But we're not here to tell you how bad that man is. He's like a self-cleaning oven. He does all the work for you. You can just listen to him. He'll take care of all that for you. We're here to remind all of us how good we are. That there's something better for us. Something better we could do. Someone like that little joke. I was on Morning Joe the other day, and I used that little joke because we use it all the time. So the guy's like a self-cleaning oven, he does all the work for you, and I start getting these emails from random people like my favorite line ever, self-cleaning oven. Yeah, my wife, who's the best person I know, said to me before that, she goes, "Hey, don't use that self-cleaning oven line. It sounds a little snarky. You're better than that." And I'm like, oh, I love it so much. So thank you, Rob, for the additional chuckle. So that's what we do. We travel about. But we're not here to demonize people. We recognize that people have all kinds of reasons for voting in the way that they do. I have a son who's a huge Trumper. I love him. I love his children. I love his wife. His ringtone when I call him is, "I'm Donald Trump and I approve this message." And I think that's hilarious, right? Like, that's okay. He can be that way and we're still going to love each other. But I want to make sure that Donald Trump never has the power of the presidency ever again. I believe he's the light of the world, the salt of the earth, the beloved child of God, Donald Trump, just like everybody is. I believe that's true about everyone. But not every light of the world should be the president of the United States. And that dim little light never needs to have the power that we choose to grant to the presidency. So people are trying to figure out what they do. And here's what we've learned. Voting is not about the candidate for voters. Voting is an act that tells people who they are. When you vote, you're kind of saying something about yourself. And we're talking with those people who feel like, I don't know what to do. I can't do what I used to do, and I don't know if I'm ready yet to do the thing I never thought I would do. That behavioral change, really hard. Really hard. We have found that there's three things always in place when someone's making a big behavioral change. And it doesn't matter if it's changing your political actions, or if you start playing pickleball, or if you change your eating, start taking a yoga class, start playing guitar. You start making a new behavioral pattern, and three things are going to be in place at some point. One of those is you're going to learn some new information that becomes interesting or disturbing to you. Something's going to come in. But information's rarely the only thing that happened. Someone's not like, I don't know, I saw a video and it was about pickleball and that looked interesting. Usually, after some new information comes in, somewhere in the mix, someone grants an invitation for you to act on that information. Most of us have somebody in our life who walks with us into that new behavior. Now, if you do deep work, if you do work in psychology, or you do work with addiction, or you do work with people who are changing some deep patterns, they actually have partners. If you've been in a weight loss or weight gain program, you know that you get partnered up with someone who walks with you. If you're breaking an addiction, you end up with a counselor, or with a coach, or with a person that you can call, with a mentor. We always need someone to go with us. But then you're ultimately, if you're going to make that change, you probably saw this one coming already. You need information, you need an invitation, preacher day. You need a community of participation. You need a group of people who do the thing that you're now wanting to do. Because you're all of a sudden like, I don't even know how to do this or how to talk about it. So you need a group of people. So we've realized that when you start talking about people who are making a political shift and say they want to keep their religious faith intact, they want it to grow and expand, but they want to change their political identity, how do they find those folks? There's not very many of them. We talk to people all the time who tell us things like, there's nobody around me that I can talk to about this. There's this great woman who came to an event that we did in Holland, Michigan. She'd driven an hour and a half or further. She was mid-60s, I'm guessing. I said to her, that's a long way to come to an event. It was a big event, there was a big room full of people and stuff. And I said, that's a long way to come for something like this. She said, oh, I can't let anyone in my town know there's a Christian, I'm not voting for Donald Trump. And I said, yeah, why is that? She said, I own the hardware store. She said, they'll go to Home Depot or Lowe's. We did this project in 2020 called Hindsight 2020. People voted in one way in 2016, and we're going to shift the way they voted in 2020. We wanted them to tell their stories, so people wouldn't just hear someone talk about people change their stories, but they would just tell their story. And it's great, by the way. You can watch these on our YouTube channel and our website and stuff. The Hindsight 2020, people telling their stories. And we asked a person, "Hey, do you know anybody who this would be your story?" We'd say this at all the events in 2020. And the person said, "Well, you could ask my mom. My father just died, and she said she's going to change her voting habits. She always voted the way her husband wanted. My dad wanted her to, but now she's free to vote the way she wants." And I said to her, her mom came to the event that night, and I said, "Hey, would you ever be interested in doing a little video with us?" And she's so sweet. She smiled, and she goes, "Oh, honey, I play bridge with the girls on Thursday. I can't tell anybody." She wants her friends. Somebody wants their business. They want their community. So you can imagine that if they're all of a sudden going to do something and they don't know about others, how lonely that can feel. And I promise you, almost all of us would rather do something wrong with a group than do something right and be alone. I mean, that's I don't blame anybody for that. So we're trying to create a community of people all over the place. A psychographic community, a demographic community. We're trying all these things to find ways for people to feel like they're part of something. That they're not just nuts. That they're not just breaking the rules. They didn't do something wrong because the internal pressures, sometimes in our own thoughts in our heads. So that's what we're up to. We travel the country and we say faith, hope, and love, supporting democracy for all. Because we think faith, hope, and love is something that we all own. No religion owns it. No tradition owns it. Certainly no political party owns it. But I promise you one thing. You drive in these buses. You pull up, setting up a rally. And you're going to get a whole bunch of people who are like, I'm confused about what's going on out there. Sometimes we put out candidate signs when we're supporting candidates, so we stand there with candidates. And people come up, and a guy in Hudson, Wisconsin last week came up and said, I am really confused. You got faith, hope, and love, but then you got a Kamala Harris sign. And we had a sign for a candidate who was running for Congress, Kyle Kilborn. You got a Kyle Kilborn sign, but you have faith, hope, and love. I don't understand how those two things go together. Had a guy run up to us in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and he saw the buses, and he was across the parking lot, and he screams, "My man!" And he comes running up, and as he runs up to the bus, he reads all of it, and he goes, "Oh, I thought you were with the good guys." Because he saw faith, hope, and love, right? There's so many people who think when they see this thing. We pulled up to events with, like we were supporting a guy running for governor in Pennsylvania, a guy named Josh Shapiro. We're doing events with Josh Shapiro. And we pull up with his bus. He had a bus rally. He had a bus and they had a rally for it. And we provided sound and stage and all this stuff for him. And we pull up with our bus, and you could see the people, the Democrats there, supporting him, seeing this bus pull up with faith, hope, and love, and they all got freaked out. And then they would come up to us later, and they're like, "Oh, we were so afraid that it was those guys." Somehow, faith, hope, love says only one political party. Now look, I don't think Democrats own faith, hope, and love. Yeah. But I sure know Republicans don't own faith, hope, and love. So what we're trying to do is get a little bit of parity. We don't have to tell anybody who to vote for. We're here to help people figure out if they want a little bit of agency. And if somebody wants to vote for Donald Trump like my son Chico, I'm going to love you till the end of time. It's not something to love somebody over. But we can talk about it. And we're going to talk about it, and we're going to do all that we can. So tonight we're going to do something a little different than what we often do at these things. We're going to do a little storytelling. So I'd love for some of you to be who are willing to tell pieces of your story about what's gotten you to the place where you are with your political identity and your religious or faith identity. Where do you see yourself? Where were you, maybe? And where are you going to find yourself? So if you start thinking about that for a couple of minutes, is there a piece of your story you'd be willing to tell? Some of these mics can roam around, so you can stay there, or we can move around. We do record these and we put them up. By the way, if you're not following our socials, all the stuff we do, we put them all up on. You can get more faith, hope, and love than you'd ever want in a day. We're just out here all the time because we're doing this now like every single day. It's just really ridiculous. We're going to get to how you can come do this with us in a little bit. But we'd love for you to tell pieces of your story. If you don't want to be on camera, fair enough. We're not live streaming this. By the way, a little insider secret. We often don't live stream. We record them and then we post them as live streams later because we sometimes clean up. Sometimes things happen where someone's like, I'd rather not have that, on the internet. So that's what goes on. So this will go out as a live stream tomorrow, but we'll be able to cut out. So you feel free to talk about what you want. Just tell us if you don't want other people to hear. We're glad to have that happen. So be thinking a bit about what's a little piece of your story. How did you end up where you are? And I want to tell you a couple of good news stories. We have been cared for and loved in our journeys. We've been doing this since 2018, not on the road constantly. We did a tour in 2018, did a tour in 2020, and then there was a pandemic, and then we busted out of the pandemic in August of 2015 and did a walk from Charlottesville, Virginia to Washington, D.C. to join in the anniversary of the March on Washington. So we did a 117-mile faith leader walk, and people walked the country, and we joined in that, and then we were on the tour for the rest of 2020. In 2021, along with Carol Fraser and others, we rode bicycles from San Diego, California, along the U.S.-Mexico border down to Texas, and then along the coast to St. Augustine, Florida, and making a documentary about that, which is going to come out next week, by the way, so you'll have a chance to start looking at that documentary about what's really going on at the border, crossing on both sides. So we were touring like that in 2020. Then in 2022, we were out, did stuff with Josh Shapiro and other people. We've been on the road. Been on the road this year since January. Did a faith and democracy event in North Carolina. And then we found out that a bunch of people were putting together a thing that they called the God's Army effort. What was it called? God's Army Militia. Do you remember hearing in January when a bunch of people wanted to get truckers to drive down to the U.S.-Mexico border in Eagle Pass, Texas, this sweet, small little town in West Texas? The governor of Texas has decided to make the crosshairs of his attack on the border. They were going to ride 40,000 trucks down there, was the goal. We found out that was happening on Tuesday. They were going to be there on Saturday. So we find out on Tuesday, and Thursday, we fired up our bus and went down to Eagle Pass, Texas. Because they weren't going to be the only people with a big diesel vehicle there. We're going to tell another story. Turned out there were not 40,000, there were 4 trucks. It's hard to organize a national campaign. But the point wasn't just that they didn't show up in the numbers. It's the people there weren't what we thought they were. You start finding this out so often, how many people support you and care for you. They have a political story in their head that tells them who the enemies are, but then their real experience starts to change that, and the same thing happens to us. So a few weeks ago, we were in Pennsylvania. I can't remember the name of the town. Rob, do you remember? Potts.
Close to Pottsville or something.
Close to Pottsville.
Hershey.
We were doing an event with a person running for the state legislature there. And she's running as a Democrat. We were going to do an event by the side of our bus. And we put these flags up, and we put lawn chairs out, and we do this thing in the parking lot. And we'd asked the campaign about where they thought a good space would be, and we were looking for a space, and they were looking for one, and they suggested this parking lot of a restaurant that was no longer open. And so on this Sunday afternoon, they thought that would be a good spot for us to meet. We're like, that sounds great. So we thought they had called the owner to see if we could meet in the parking lot. They thought we called the owner to see if we could meet in the parking lot. Nobody called the owner. So we're set up. We got the bus. We got all this stuff going. A pickup truck comes driving into the parking lot. The guy gets out. He comes walking up to me, and he's confused as can be. I said, hey, good to see you. And he goes, what the hell are you doing here? This is my property. And he looks at the bus. He looks at all this. He's just totally flabbergasted. He cannot understand why we're in his parking lot with this whole big setup. And he goes, and this, I don't know what all this is. I'm a Christian, gun-carrying, Trump-supporting, Second Amendment-loving, pickup truck driving, MAGA supporter. What are you doing here? And I said, clearly nobody called. I'm so sorry. He goes, pack up your stuff and get out of here. I said, I totally understand. I'm so sorry. I start walking away, and then he goes, okay, hang on a minute. Looks like you're all set up. Is this candidate here? And I said, yeah, she's standing right over there. He goes, can I meet her? So he walks over, says hello, meets her. They talk for a few minutes. These two people are neighbors. This is going to be her district. They couldn't be more different. He comes back and he goes, okay, you guys are all set up. You can stay. And I started thinking immediately, like, wow, I think I'm in the presence of a good Samaritan. I thought, if I owned a property and a bunch of red hats pulled up and had a bus up there, when I have said, yeah, I don't know, you're already set up, just go ahead and go on, right? So we finished our event. He's out mowing the property on his tractor. I went out to him, I had 2 beers and $100. And I said, here's $100, I hope that's fair. He said, that's totally fair. For using his parking lot for a couple of hours. And I said, here's 2 beers, and if you want both of them, you can have them, but if you wouldn't mind having one with me, I'd love to. He goes, let's do that. Let's do it over by your bus. So we drive over and sit out in front of the bus. And we start talking. We're the same age. He's moving out of Pennsylvania because it's become too liberal. Everything they own was inside of a shipping container sitting right behind where we met. They're selling the restaurant. We start talking about it. He starts saying what he's doing with the restaurant, how much he loved it, and how great it was to host people and have things. I said, my wife and I have talked about owning a place, and she's a yoga instructor. He's like, hey, you should buy my place. And then he starts talking about church, and he says, you know, it really breaks my heart. He said, all those things I said about me are true, but I go to a church, and I thought church would be the place where we could all come together. And instead, it's the thing that's tearing us all apart. So we start talking about our kids and grandkids, and how important faith is to us and how we want to move. And all of a sudden, there's all these connections. And by the end, he says, hey, I hope your person loses the election, but I hope it all goes well for you. And I got to tell you, that's really encouraging.
Yeah.
He had all the reasons, and we just have story, and we've had Proud Boys at our events, and we've had them flash guns, and we've had them encorns, and people try to drive our buses off the road. Yes, 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 all that stuff. But there are people, and I promise you, both he and I are changed people because of that experience. So maybe you have an experience like that too, and we'd love to hear about it. So we'll take a couple of seconds here. Will you sing a song while people do a little pondering about maybe a thought or a story you'd have to tell? And look, it can be a short anecdote. Better than a whole long story like I've been telling, you know, like do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. But you can also talk as long as you want. You're welcome to come up here and do it, or if you want us to bring a microphone to you. So, Joel, I don't know I'm surprising you with that. Sorry about that.
No.
Joel, hey, by the way, Joel met our group. Well, we sort of met a year ago at a thing called the Wild Goose Festival, but this July, we met at the Wild Goose Festival, and I would say this things, we always say this stuff, we're here to recruit you if you want to come on the road with us, and Joel's like, yeah, I'd do it. So a couple weeks ago, Joel gets on the bus, and now he's traveling around with us. So when we say we really do this, we're not even kidding, like really.
I feel like anyone that knows me would say that
would fit. That was tight.
Yeah.
You're ready to type? So we're all figuring this part out together as we go. And we do have a bunch of regulars that are with us as well. It's not like people don't come back. I mean, it kind of makes it sound like people don't want to be around, but they do come back. So Joel is a musician and a poet and a thinker and a pastor. And so give us a little song, and if you don't, think about a story, and then Rob's going to come up after that
I
story.
wonder if this might be the spoken word moment here.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Love it.
This is my story. I don't think you've heard this one yet, though. So hopefully you like it.
I hope so too.
This is my story. My mother. The church that bore me, raised me, suckled me, embraced me, rescued, even, yes, saved me, dazzled and amazed me. Like Rapunzel, I found out she had me locked in a tower, drunk on her own power. She wasn't even my mother, she robbed me from another. When confronted, she resisted. I implored, she insisted it was for my own good, that I belonged in this wood, that Out there were only liars, a country full of briars, thorns that would entangle me, darkness to envelop me. Only in the sanctity of her family could I be free. My mother, the one I clung to, the God I cherished that I had sung to, was not a God at all, but an idol, a liar, a block of stone when I needed fire. My mother, she said, my father was a God of justice and humble power, that he cares for widows and orphans and the poor and the oppressed, that a heart for the disinherited is beating in his chest, that he despises pride and corruption and lies and exploitation, that salvation was not just consummation, but an entire reorientation, shalom, a new way of living, a kingdom not of this world, not born of violence or coercion, but a new reality that rose and fell on this assertion that God is love, that God is light, that in God is no darkness at all. That the way to change the world was through humility as power, not through military might, but through the weakness of a flower. That the means were just as important as the ends. That sins, no matter how nobly intentioned, still condemn. I bought into it. I bought it all, lock, stock, and barrel. I did the research, found the teachers, became a preacher, bought the t-shirt. I thought it was real. I felt all the feels, put on the whole armor, used my faith as a shield. I read all the right books, went to the right schools. I got on track to become another fool. Knew all the right people, took all the right pills, voted for outrageous parties, paid heavenly bills. And no, whatever you're thinking, I didn't get deceived by the left. I just started reading the Bible and the words that Jesus said, the life that he lived, the people he loved, the religion he condemned, the hypocrites he snubbed. And the Lord and Master said, you will know them by their fruit. So I started looking around, started digging for the proof. And I asked myself, honestly, this mother of mine, this God that I worship, she says he's divine. He made us all in his image, but if that is the case, then why do all the pictures of Jesus have a white face? If Jesus loves mercy, not sacrifice, then why are we sacrificing our mercy for him? This man who cares nothing for mercy, for grace. This president who delights in dividing by race. We lined up behind him, we called him anointed, the same thing we called Jesus, Messiah, appointed. And you tell me this is somehow not the Antichrist? You told me even Satan can look like an angel of light. And if it were possible, he would deceive the elect, which right now looks to be around 81%. And it's looking like a whole lot of us need to take a step back. But my mother, back to my mother, she put a knife to her wrist. She said it was worth losing her life over this. 4 years of power, the chance to control. But what if we gain the whole world but lose our own soul? See, Jesus loves people who are running for their lives, who can't afford health care, who are struggling to survive. He was always welcoming those who had nowhere else to go, the queer ones, the drunk ones, the sinners, the hoes. And never, ever, anywhere is Jesus harsh with them or rude, but he's snarky as fuck with stuck-up religious prudes. We sing about mercy, about reckless love and more, and then stop up our ears at the cry of the poor. Jesus came to break down divisions, according to St. Paul. Hey, Mr. President, tear down this wall. Yet we rally and post about heroes and idols, these statues we call heritage, men that inspire, men of faith, men of courage, men who fought to own slaves, to work and to burn and to brand and to rape. We can't be complicit, we cry and we moan. All of that happened at least 40 years ago. And all our brothers and sisters of color, they're screaming, see us! We're hurting, we're suffering, we're bleeding, but all we can see in their hurt and their anger is how our white, straight American Jesus is in danger. Do you know how Reagan really flipped the South for perpetuity? Because Jimmy Carter desegregated Bob Jones University. Don't tell me suddenly that the gospel isn't about politics here. You've been saying the opposite for 500 years. building this idea of a Christian nation that bombs and destroys and pollutes all creation. We say it's all about saving babies. What a joke. It's a transparent play for power and suppressing the black vote. I'm wondering if you know this, God. I'm hoping that you don't. They will never ban it outright. How would they motivate your vote? These conservative justices you want to put on the court, they rule on a lot more than the right to abort. Keeping billionaires wealthy and sick people sicker, laborers struggling while the rich just get richer. But this is Christianity, whose apparent major function is to make sure Ford and Rockefeller keep their tax deductions. So my mother, my dear mother, I watched and I screamed as she drew the blade down her arm and she started to bleed. It was painful at first, I could tell in her eyes, but at a certain point of blood loss, it starts to feel more like a high. I'm grieving, I'm weeping, I'm dying inside. Can't you see that I'm wailing over my mother's suicide? Yet you keep it all coming, the excuses, the deflections, the moralistic language, the elaborate genuflections. God can use anyone, anything for his glory. You know, that's exactly what they said about boarding schools and slavery. Did you know that gay kids are 5 times as likely to attempt suicide? Do you take that fact lightly? Because you keep on repeating to them, just repent, all is well, you can choose a life of loneliness, you're free to choose hell. We compare them to pedophiles, to murderers, to thieves, while Jesus just keeps saying, come unto me. I can't, I won't do it anymore. I can't do it to myself. I feel rotten to the core. I feel nothing like Jesus. I hate going to church. I hate saying I'm a Christian because that word just means hurt for so many people, for people like me who've been kicked out of churches for just trying to be free, for wrestling with doubt, for telling a gay kid they're okay, for asking a Buddhist to help me learn how to pray. I guess what I'm saying is this is goodbye. I'm exhausted. I'm weary. I'm a mess inside. I'm angry. I'm furious, but mostly I'm sad. My mother abused me and then blamed it on my dad. Little children, keep yourselves from idols, he said. This is my flowers at the gravestone because my mother is dead. Woo!
All right, so there's that. Thank you. I did love it. Read little stories. Just one moment. Sorry about that, Rob. Okay, somebody have a story, an anecdote, a piece of your own. You don't have to be a wordsmith, craftsman like Joel was. Certainly don't have to go long, but anybody a piece of your own story you'd be willing to share? Come on, you want to use that mic?
That's great. Wow, I don't know how to follow that. It was art and truth together. Well, my story is probably like a lot of yours. I was raised in a very conservative Christian home. Parents, my dad's a pastor, and my grandparents were very conservative. I'm not quite sure why, except I found out later in life that my grandfather was a very successful executive with New Jersey Bell, was actually legendary as a union buster. I didn't know that until after his passing. He rose to the top of the ranks as executive VP, but his whole job was destroying the union that the operators at that time were, not destroying, but certainly suppressing them. They always hated the unions and said unions ruined the phone company for everybody. That's a little seed that kind of got planted. I didn't think about until later, but we're very conservative. I remember I was about 15 in the summer of 1968. That shows you how old I am. So I was on my way to school with the son of our Youth for Christ director, who was sitting next to me, and he happened to mention, yeah, we're voting for Humphrey. What? It was Humphrey versus Nixon. I couldn't breathe. Like, you're Christian. You're voting for I mean, it was that bad. It was that bad. I couldn't breathe in the bus. I don't know how, I remember being viscerally just shocked by that. Yeah, we're going, and this was before the culture wars, guys. This was before same-sex marriage and abortion and all that stuff. There was something so deeply embedded that I just somehow assumed. In my dad's church, my dad was a very loving guy. My parents were loving people. But there were a lot of George Wallace people in there, in that church. This was in Pennsylvania, suburban Philadelphia, not the Deep South. So that was the culture I grew up with. And I remember when Jimmy Carter came along, I was kind of a young adult, and I'm very suspicious of him. You know, Christian Democrat? I don't think so. Can't be. Can't possibly be. I mean, I had already graduated college by this time. I was fairly intelligent on my way to grad school, just really locked in. But during the Carter years, as a young adult, I kind of saw the virtue of this guy. I also saw how inept he was as a leader because of his virtue. I came to that impression, that realization later. The man was just too decent to do the dirty work required of a politician. Now, I've kind of withdrawn from that position. But so when Reagan came along, somewhat suspicious of him, saw through the artifice that it's kind of the performance element, and realized this decent, wonderful man, probably as a person, was involved in some very nasty stuff, suppressing the union. Really, he kind of birthed the class warfare that we have inherited today, it seems to me. Well, the welfare Cadillac mom. You remember all that stuff? Maybe I'm the only old person in the room. But this very decent man sowed some really bad seed, that we have now inherited. But being part of the evangelical and specifically the charismatic subculture, Carol and I sort of swung back around. We remember kind of voting for Clinton, but surreptitiously not telling anybody. And of course, that's when the moral majority and all that was really building in the evangelical church. And the two big issues, you know what they are: same-sex marriage and abortion. That's what they just hammered that, ignoring everything else that a Christian ethic, that a truly biblical ethic would teach you about loving the poor, the preferential treatment for the poor, justice, mercy. All those things that just got swept under the rug. All that matters are about two things, and of course, we need a strident foreign policy to punish the evildoers. All this kind of warfare mentality that crept into our church way of thinking. And I remember thinking, and then the term biblical worldview came along. You guys remember that term? I actually taught and still teach a course at a little Christian college here called Biblical Worldview, but I think they're about to take it away from me. Because biblical worldview and evangelical mindset, I'm here to slam evangelicals. I still are one, just barely. I'm hanging on. I would call myself now an Orthodox believer, is what I am, or maybe ex-evangelical. But I still believe the core doctrines of the church. But how this is, when we're talking about a biblical worldview now, it's basically an Old Testament kind of judgment worldview. There's very little of the Sermon on the Mount in a biblical worldview in the evangelical mindset right now, I would say. I'm having a hard time finding it anyway. Love your enemies, welcome the poor, the justice and mercy, the way Jesus interacted with people, the downtrodden, welcoming the broken, never judging. His main, I loved your comment, man. He really went at the snarky. I'm not going to use the word, but I love that you did. He had it in for the hypocrites and the religious elite. He had it in for them. He was pissed. And we welcome the hypocrite and the religious elite. Now we glorify them somehow. So it's all upside down. And as far as the issues that motivate us, we held our noses and voted for GW. But finally, it was halfway. You're talking about our journey, I guess, right? Our journey. It was after the Iraq War that my eyes were fully opened. That invasion. If this guy, George W. Bush, is hearing from God, what God is he hearing from? The whole thing built on a lie, and how many hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis were killed through that ridiculous and feckless invasion, which really, it seemed to me, it was just a blood feud between the Bush and the family and the Saddam family. It was all about that personal thing. He tried to kill my daddy. How many times did we hear that? And it became a righteous crusade. We thought that Saddam was bad, but ISIS was much worse. And so where's the judgment? And so the evangelical church just went right along with that. After that, I was done. I was still a pastor at a church, but I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't, but I still had to kind of keep quiet. Well, quiet no more, quiet no more. Those cultural war issues, I'm like David French and like Russell Moore. I am pro-life, and I think abortion is a tragedy. It's a tragedy for those who experience it, and I wish it didn't exist. I also wish that 50,000 people weren't shot and killed by guns every year. I wish that we weren't declaring war on the poor and elevating the wealthy. A lot of other things I wish weren't true. As far as same-sex marriage, who cares? Love who you love, right? Of course, if Luke Bryan can say that, country artist, why can't we? Love who you love. And we'll answer all those questions like, who cares? That's not my business. I like Walt. Mind your own damn business, right? That's pretty good stuff. Mind your own business. But think about what you can do to make life easier for the vast majority of people who are suffering in this nation under an unjust tax code, under policies that are so tilted toward the wealthy and against the middle class, and just this ethos of cruelty. And I have to admit, man, that I think that it's become a phrase now, but I think it's true. With the MAGA movement, I'm not going to put this on or not. I mean, I truly believe cruelty is the point. And my dear, loving, wonderful Christian mom, she was kind of my, really, in many ways, my soulmate. We were so much alike. I loved her. That's where I get my artistic gifts from. Even she was locked into a place that I didn't recognize. And I remember being so shocked when I heard from my sister that one night they were watching Obama on TV. And my dear, sweet, loving Christian mom just said this, and I can see it because I know her so well. She gritted her teeth and she said, "Oh, I just wish somebody would take him out." And my sister said, "That's just mom." No, it's not just mom. There's something deep down in her heart that was unclean. And I don't know how it got there, and I love her and I honor her memory. But something's twisted at the core of our minds. If we can love Jesus, and she was kind and loving to everybody in her life, she struggled with family things sometimes. But to be able to say that, there's something down in there that's wrong. And I see that so much among my evangelical brethren, who love the Lord, and they love me, and we love each other. But there's something that celebrating cruelty and oppression that has woven its way into this particular brand of American Christianity. And we got to get it out. I don't know what's going to happen. It may mean that the whole evangelical project is going to crumble. It could happen. But there's a Jekyll and Hyde kind of mentality going on in our churches right now. Folks who love Jesus, praise the Lord. But I know in their heart, they're kind of hoping that the bad guy wins. And you know that Russell Moore article where he visited churches and guys preaching on the Sermon on the Mount. This is not news to anybody here. And he was mobbed after the service. "What are you preaching that woke stuff for, Pastor? Love your enemies?" You remember? Yeah. That's alive and well in our churches. I don't know what to do about it.
Well,
but I hope this was helpful.
Rob, it's so helpful because, look, thank you so much for that. Because
Really good.
we don't have a problem. Problems have solutions. You just fix a problem. This is a predicament. Predicaments require multiple responses. So the situation we all find ourselves in is, you don't do nothing, you do something. Thank you. You don't do nothing, you do something. You find your something. So what are we going to do? 25 things, 30 things, 50 things, 100 things, 1,000 things. No one thing's going to fix it. But everything's going to be a response to it. And what we can do, if you can't fix, you can respond. We don't have to react. Now we're going to do all this, difference between being reactive and responsive. We can respond. We all have resources. We all have things. All right, anybody else, a short bit, something from your own story? What got you here, maybe tonight, or where you are in your own mind when you think about it? Yeah, please. You want to come up?
Well, thank you for doing it, though.
I'm in Stephen. No, you were here. So I thought I'd share something that's on my mind. So my thought goes to, we all have stories, and stories are narratives, and narratives are rooted in ideas. During my work during the day, I am a brand scientist, and I help people understand how ideas are really powerful. And ideas are the most powerful thing. In fact, ideas are typically rooted in a very powerful emotion, and I won't go into the science of the limbic system or the frontal cortex, but basically when we have ideas, they are powered by emotions. And what's interesting is those ideas typically become habits. Habits become actions. And so many of us, when we have powerful ideas in our lives, they're rooted with those strong emotions, and something must be equal or greater to displace us from that. I was 28 when I came out to myself and didn't know. And I had attended Bible school. I thought I would work in full-time vocational music and arts ministry. I went to a church that, upon this discovery, threw me in kind of a 12-step program with other men who needed to achieve sexual integrity. And I, at the time, was still a virgin. And so this was very awkward. Because what they were saying is, we have this idea that there's something wrong with you. And there's a thing, if you're not familiar with conversion therapy, you can Google that on your own time. But I came to a point where the pain and the frustration of being held in a system of ideas was too much, and I had to break free from it. And then I discovered a new progressive church, and going there, I thought that, hey, this is a place for me to bloom and to blossom. And come to find out that they would accept my money, but if I wanted to get involved, this was not the place for me. Even if there was a lady and a woman and her wife, where even if she was the senior VP if she was a superintendent of schools and had a doctorate in education, she still would not be fit. Because they had this powerful idea, and they had not yet confronted the reality that maybe this idea may be wrong. In my work, I share that ideas are the most powerful, people are the most important, and brands connect the two. And I would share with you that we have an issue of brand and alignment with brand. And so we find brands that say, oh, this is my idea, this is my idea. And so the challenge is, how do we love people when they have these distinctive memory structures that they're latched onto, and they think they must align? If you've ever, I don't know if you've ever met an Eagle Scout before. I don't know if you've ever met a son. I don't know if you've ever met a farmer. I don't know if you've ever met a shaman. I don't know if you've ever met a gay person. I don't know if you've ever met somebody who is autistic. I'm all those things. Now you can say that you have. And yet the irony is that you may have some ideas about each of those things. And now you have a decision. Do I invite curiosity and compassion in where I can explore conversation and possibly have a conversation that will shift? The last thing I'll share is this. Our mind has two systems. One is on autopilot 95% of the time. It's the reason you can talk on the phone, drive your car. It's called System 1. System 2 is only 5% of the time. It's why right now you probably can't tell me what 12 times 37 is without using all the resources in your brain. The interesting thing is curiosity and compassion has to use System 2. So it's really, really easy for us to go on autopilot with these ideas. Because they're ideas, and they're thoughts and actions and habits and alignment. And so I thought I'd share that to just give a little scientific insight why this is so difficult. This is really difficult because we have parents who, when I talk to my mom, she says, oh, no, I've done the research, I know who I'm voting for, I don't want to get into politics. But if they understand that they have a gay son, and the active work that is done to oppress a people group, and that's just one of many. So I live in that tension of, it's really, really hard when I have parents who have these strong associations in a rural farming community, that they have this brand issue, that the brand of Jesus and the Jesus brand of Christianity, this association of Christianity, has always been shifting over time. shifted to a new thing and a new thing and a new thing. And everybody likes to claim ownership of it.
Right.
And actually, I would invite you to consider that it's using system 2 that says with compassion and curiosity that we can look and consider with gratitude and thankfulness in active parts of our being. That's where the shift happens. It doesn't happen when we're on autopilot.
Incredible. What's your name?
Stephen, I hope you'll add to that list of all the things about you that you're a vote common good speaker. So thank you for being that. Anybody else? Okay, last chance. Anybody else want to share a piece? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I think what I want to talk about is permission and identity. Oh, is that hard to? Is that better?
That's better.
Maybe I should just hold you.
Yeah.
I'm taller than I thought. I'll just hold it. I also grew up conservative evangelical, and in 2008, after being newly married, volunteered at a local crisis pregnancy center because I really was opposed to abortion. And the first thing that I learned was that when you work with women in crisis pregnancy, they need all the help that they can get and services that I was told we wouldn't need if we all pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps. And the wheels started turning because I was close to people who had a vastly different life experience that I did. They probably didn't know that that was my beginning of a journey away from marrying conservatism to my Christian faith. And throughout a journey, I experienced infertility and adoption. We have 2 multiracial children who really opened our eyes to what we should have learned decades earlier. And we also experienced a stillbirth after doing IVF, and now another IVF baby who is 7 and really spunky. But through all of our journey, we look through our life experiences is what identifies us. And I ended up running for office for State House in 2020. I ran as a Democrat in Williamson County. And so you can probably tell what that means. And what was really illuminating was after we had experienced a stillbirth, I realized I could never tell a woman what to do in a crisis situation. But making that decision in 2020 when I ran for office to identify as myself as pro-choice was a huge shift in identity and not just a political belief or opinion. And I realized there are so many people in our lives who are questioning, who feel like in order to question their political views, they're having to question their identity. And so I think as people of faith, no matter our faith, being able to share with people how meaningful integrity is, our faith, and also why we believe in that we are voting for someone different than they are, that we are choosing a more progressive path, or maybe one that we may still have a lot of conservative beliefs, but we're still saying in this election we can no longer stand for dehumanization of immigrants. We can no longer stand for the discrimination of the LGBTQ community. Whatever decision we choose, when we speak to it in a place of our experience and from our deeply felt beliefs, and we share that with folks, we give them the permission to change a little choice. And that doesn't mean they're going to change their identity, but it means that we are giving them permission when we share with them our story. So anyway, that's my personal story. I now work with pastors across the state of Tennessee in a really exciting way, including Ricky's pastor. We join, I really elevate my work behind the scenes now and get to elevate their voices, countering Christian nationalism in Tennessee and speaking against policies of harm in the disguise of Christianity, and which is actually Christian nationalism. So super grateful for the work that you guys do, but also, am I allowed to plug Southern?
Please.
Please follow Southern Christian Coalition too, and join what we're doing with our pastors, because I think, especially in a state like Tennessee, it's really, they are also providing that permission to people that they are authentic Christian Christ followers. They have callers, they are pastors who deeply believe in the salvation of Jesus, and they also believe in justice and equity and voting for policies that protect and love our neighbors.
Oh, you're so good.
And thanks for answering random text messages you get from mutual friends. We message you
I'll
there.
always answer a text from someone sent by Kevin Riggs.
Great, Kevin Riggs, fan favorite. I heard somebody give a TED talk about race, his biracial person, and he had this great metaphor. He said a lot of people think that racial bias is like their tonsils, and they could say the day they had their tonsils taken out. And he said, I think it's more like buildup in our teeth that you want to check every day and clear out every day. That maybe our judgment of other people isn't something we had taken out once. I love everyone. It's something we just check every day. And when there's stuff in there, you do what you can. And you start smelling it a little bit, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna get it out, I'm gonna clean it, and then I'm gonna move on. That's a better way than thinking I have a single problem that I was taken out. So, we all fall. And then sometimes we can get back up. Rob Ryerse's our last one for the night. Rob is our political organizer. Rob helps us with the candidates. We have a couple of hundred, Rob probably knows the number, 270, something like that, common good candidates around the country. People have taken a pledge of the common good, running for Senate, running for Congress, running for state offices, all that. So he does all of that work. I'll probably tell you that he's also been a pastor in Arkansas, where he currently lives, and other places. So, Rob Ryersey.
Any other Robs in the room?
We've been robbed.
All right. Just want to make sure. I want to tell you 3 stories. First one is a story about me. I grew up, paraphrasing the Apostle Paul, as a Republican of the Republicans. Remember when he referred to himself as a Pharisee of the Pharisees? So when I was 15 years old, I had 2 magazine subscriptions. One was Sports Illustrated. The other one was National Review magazine, which was William F. Buckley's magazine. I had pictures on my wall of a guy named Al D'Amato, who was the Republican senator from New York, Bob Dole, even had a picture of this unknown Georgia congressman named Newt Gingrich, back when he was a freshman congressman. I was a caller to the Rush Limbaugh show. Got on the air 5 times. I know. Mega dittos, right? I went to teenage Republican school as like a summer camp thing. So basically what I'm telling you is I was the coolest kid ever. I tell you all that to let you know that I was in deep. Stuff was deeply ingrained in me. It was the air that I breathed, the water that I swam in, all of it. And over a long period of time, for a variety of reasons, I no longer identify as a Republican. I'm not sure I identify as a Democrat because there's, I don't know, nearly 50 years of bias against that. But I often joke that now I'm a Republican who travels the country campaigning for Democrats because that's what Donald Trump did to us. I also say that 2 people who have changed my life more than any others are Jesus and Donald Trump for 2 very different reasons. But I tell you just a little bit of my story because I want you to know that people can change. And I know you've got somebody in your life, you've got a family member, you've got a friend, you've got a neighbor, and you're just like, what is it going to take? And I would I've been a pastor for 25 years, so I don't want to get a little preachy, but I would say that
I often think about a statement that the Apostle Paul made in the book of Romans where he said, it is God's kindness that leads us to repentance. You think about how you've changed in your own life. It rarely has been because of guilt or shame or anger. It hasn't been because somebody won an argument with you. The vast majority of times that we change in our lives, it happens through relationship, kindness, a friend that says truth travels best on the road of relationships. And so that person in your life, I don't know, they're super frustrating, but keep loving them. See what happens. Because change is possible. Now, second story. Second story is about my best friend. My best friend, also a lifelong Republican, who has never voted for a Democrat in his life. In 2016, he, like so many others, was absolutely horrified at Donald Trump and decided that instead of voting for Donald Trump, he would vote for Evan McMullen for president of the United States. Yeah, there you go. And if you don't know who Evan McMullen was, he was like the conservative Mormon alternative to Donald Trump. It was like, oh, there's this horribly immoral man who's not really a conservative. We'll give the exact opposite choice for true conservatives. And Evan McMullen got, I don't know, a bunch of votes. Ricky's, my buddy Aaron's, and probably his own wife. Evan McMullen's wife probably. 2020, Evan McMullen didn't run for president again, and my friend Aaron left the presidential line blank. Couldn't vote for Donald Trump again. Couldn't vote for Joe Biden either. In 2022, in the state of Arkansas where I live, a lady by the name of Sarah Huckabee Sanders was running for governor. And she was running against a guy named Dr. Chris Jones. You have probably had the experience where you have gone to vote and you feel like, I'm voting for the lesser of two evils, right? Those of us that voted in 2022 in Arkansas who voted for Dr. Chris Jones, we didn't feel that way. We felt like, oh, this is someone I actually want to be my governor. Sadly, he didn't win, but he was the type of candidate that inspired a lot of people and got them excited. He was the type of candidate that around Vote Common Good we call an exceptional candidate. And when we talk about exceptional candidates, what we mean is the type of candidate that someone's willing to make an exception for. Where they would say this, I would never vote for a Democrat, but I would vote for her. I would never vote for a Democrat, but I would vote for him. And Dr. Chris Jones was one of those Democrats that people, my friend Aaron, said, I would never vote for a Democrat. And on election day, Aaron sent me a picture of his ballot. And it was bright red in so many ways that I was just like, oh, I can't believe you voted for, I can't, And at the top of his ballot, he voted for Dr. Chris Jones rather than Sarah Sanders. And here's the thing that happens with change. We often think that change is like this big crashing thing that boom, everything changes all at once. The reality is that change, I like to use the phrase acupunctural interventions. Change is often just a small little thing that touches a nerve that begins to make a difference. And what my friend Aaron doesn't realize is that in 2022, his ballot turned just the slightest shade of purple. And it will never be less purple than that ever again. It's only going to get more and more purple. And we haven't talked about it yet. But I'm willing to bet that come 2024, he's going to vote for a Democrat for president for the first time in his life. And it's all because of that permission structure. And so one of the things I would encourage you, that person in your life that you don't know, like, you're like, I don't even understand why this person votes the way they do. Here's the thing you can say to them. Here's the permission structure. You can say to them, I'm not asking you to become a Democrat. Because identity change takes a long time. Behavioral change is what we're after. I'm not asking you to become a Democrat. I'm asking you not to vote for Donald Trump in this election. That's the permission structure. That's the ask. Because once that first brick comes out of the wall, once the first domino falls, it just continues. Third story. I was with a group of people, hosted a fundraiser for a politician at my house, which means I'm really in deep to this stuff. I don't know, you're probably like me, you're getting 87 texts a day at this point, aren't you? Oh my goodness. Yeah. I got one today, it was like, I'm not going to be one of those people that text you 30 times a day. I'm like, then why are you texting me once? That's too much. So anyways, I was hosting a fundraiser for my friend who's running for Congress, and had a group of people, and in Arkansas, bright red state, and there's a lot of like uneasiness because people are feeling excited about what's happening. There's this sense that something's happening, right? There's this sense that optimism is growing and there's some energy that's building, and at the same time, it's like, I'm not sure if I should feel that way. I'm not sure if it makes sense to feel that way in a red place like where I live. And I told that group of people something that I want to tell you. That excitement that you feel, people all over the country feel it too. We travel in these two buses out here, and we have been in rooms, in spaces with people just like you who are like, I'm actually enthusiastic about this for the first time in a long time. And if you're feeling that way, I want you to know that like you're part of something that's happening. And it's not just in blue areas, and it doesn't need, and I know it's easy sometimes when you're in a quote unquote red state to feel like that doesn't even matter, but yeah, it does. Because that energy builds amongst all of us. I just want to encourage you with that. And maybe because, I've got 4 kids, I'm thinking about the movie Monsters, Inc. You remember that movie? Yeah. Monsters, Inc. The premise of the movie is that there's this big evil corporation that employs the monsters to go and scare the kids at night because their screams, their fear powers the corporation. The corporation takes that fear and turns it into power that powers, their city or whatever. It's been a long time since I've seen monsters. And there's one monster that comes along named Sully who doesn't like to scare the kids. He doesn't want to do it. He likes to make the kids laugh. He doesn't want to scare them, he wants to make them laugh. And they go through this whole thing with Mike Wazowski, who tries to turn him into the proper monster, and he goes through all the training, and eventually he can't do it, and he makes this little girl that he's assigned to, he makes her laugh. And what happens when she laughs, and she's laughing hysterically, is everything lights up. Because the laughter, the joy, is more powerful than the fear. And our politics has been driven by fear on both sides for far too long. And it feels like we're realizing that the joy, that the optimism, that the laughter, that the hope is far more powerful. So I want to just encourage you tonight, lean into that optimism, lean into that goodness. Yeah, something's happening. You're part of it. And it might very well change everything. Thank you.
Hey, before Joel's going to sing us out, I just want to tell you about ways you can be with us, and we'd like you to go with us. So one way is you could literally start to organize and say, hey, maybe I could come for a couple of days when you guys are in Omaha, or we're going to be on October 12th, or you want to come to Phoenix next week when we're going to be there, or Southern California, you want to come to Minneapolis on the 13th of October, or then to Eau Claire, or off to Michigan or Pennsylvania, and then down to Georgia again. Maybe you want to come with us, actually meet up with us, come along. We'd love to have you. We have vehicles, you can drive along if you want to bring your own, pick up your own hotel at night, you can stay with us. We run events, rallies, standing with candidates, all kinds of stuff. We do Christian nationalism training events. We do all kinds of things. So we'd love to have you come. If you're actually interested in that, be in touch, or you could talk to Beth tonight. Beth is along, who has volunteered her time and energy and services, partly to help people who want to come along with us. So if you really do, and you're really serious, please do think about us. And time is running short, so consider that. Also, we'd like to take you with us on our bus. Literally, your name on our bus. You probably didn't see that the buses are signed. There's thousands of signatures on the one, but that other bus out there, we just met a few hours ago, just before we walked in here. We pulled up at 4:45. That's when we met that bus. No one has signed that bus yet. So we would like you all to be the first signers of the new big bus. So when we go out, if it's still raining, we'll bring some towels out, you wipe them off, you write your name, you write a little salutation, you write something, and it'd be a chance to christen the new bus with our good friends here. So that'll be super fun. So we'd like to take you outside. If you're afraid of the rain, that's okay. We travel with umbrellas too. So we actually have umbrellas out there, and you can all, it'd be so fun to be out in the middle of that having umbrellas. Okay, also, 4 things get us around this country. Faith, hope, love, and diesel. Diesel pushes that thing. So we'd love to have you in the tank with us. So not only do we want you to travel with us, we'd like you to be on the bus on the outside. We'd also like you in the tank with us. So if you make any contribution to Vote Common Good, it turns into diesel. It's magical, but we do it through banking systems and fuel stations. We don't have to get into the intricacies of this. It's very complicated. We have a table over there full of stuff, none of which we sell, but also none of which is display items. They are gifts if you make a contribution. If you don't want to make a contribution, you want to take something, go ahead and just take something. There's little hats over there that look like they're LA Dodgers hats. They also say comma la on them. So that's kind of cute and fun. So you got one of those. There's fake open love shirts. There's buttons. There's stickers. There's all kinds of things. And there are postcards. The postcards are great. The postcards look like this. And the back is a postcard side. And the front says, as a person of faith, which could be from you or to someone, please join me in voting for love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, and self-control, and for Harris Walls. Vote Common Good. And then on the back, you could write, or this candidate, or your own little note. And then you put a stamp on it, and then you mail it to someone. And you might be saying to yourself, well, who would I mail that to? Well, maybe you have friends or family. Or we have lists of 15 people in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, that we know are registered Republicans, have voted in the last 3 presidential elections, and would identify as a faith voter. And we'd like you to send them a postcard with your encouragement from you to them, for them. Because I promise you, when that thing shows up and then they see one of our billboards, we put up these billboards that like, what it says, they're going up in all these states. It's Jesus, like a silhouette of a Jesus character on one side, and says turn the other cheek, and then the other side of the billboard, you know, left, right, has a picture of Donald Trump, and that one's saying, I want to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
And then we have one that says, I was a stranger and you welcomed me, and then the other side is Trump quote from 2 days ago, get them the hell out. So one of the things that we want to do is create this movement of people are like, oh, did you see that stuff? And then a postcard shows up, and then a bus pulls up, and then a whole thing starts happening. And I promise you, we do that stuff in those states, and that is like a man bites dog story. And the press come and shine cameras at us. And then that gets it in local news and newspaper and TV and radio, and that's where most of the movable voters that we talk to actually get their news from, and all the rest of that stuff. So that's what we're up to, that's what we're doing. So we want to take you with us. We also want you projecting with us by taking some postcards. We asked for a donation for these because we had to buy all the stickers and all that, but if you don't have one, feel free not to. So we want you just feeling like you're part of this, okay? And if you know other people that are part of it, pick up some bumper stickers for them, or pick up some postcards and say you're going to do a postcard writing party and you want to do it like that, right? And put a whole thing together and feel like you're part of something. We're not just here to love you and leave you. We're here to take you along with us and want you feeling like you're part of all this. Okay, so I don't know, did I miss anything else? Is that sort of all of our stuff? All right, tonight we're staying at the Hampton Inn because every night, by the love of God, we stay at a Hampton Inn. The bus driver gets to sleep inside the bus, inside the hotel, in a Hampton Inn hotel room, and we sleep in the bus. If you haven't seen a sleeper bus like that, when we go out there, get in it, there are 12 bunks on the inside of it, and they're like little coffins, and you just slide in, you wake up the next day, and you're off and running, and it's really quite magical. So we'd really like you to come. So anyway, we're going to be at the Hampton Inn over in Green Hill tonight. So if you're staying up late to party and you want to do it in the Hampton Inn parking lot, we will be there. And then tomorrow we go off to Atlanta. So if you know any friends in Atlanta, tell them we're coming. And look at the Vote Common Good website if you would, and see all the places we're doing, and all the things we're doing, films we're showing, and trainings we're doing, and events, and all the rest of that, and spread the word with some friends and family and all the rest. So please come with us. See us over there. Don't leave without something. But can I point out your shirt? Would that be too inappropriate? Would you stand up and show this shirt? Voting prevents unwanted presidencies. Unwanted presidencies. We don't have one of those over there. But I bet you would sell you that shirt for a $10,000 donation to Vote Common Good. So if you're in for 10 grand, you go home with that shirt. Because we'll give you $1,000 for it. That's real fun. If you end up with a fun shirt, take a picture, put it on our stuff. We share it out. That's going to be, it's probably on our social media already because we set it up to the social media. We think that's really fun. So please keep up with us. Please follow. Please do all those things and feel like you've got friends in this whole world. So Joel, you take us out with a song, and then and we know we've kept you all the way an hour and a half, and that's a long time. This was a lot of talking, but this felt really fun and encouraging and good for all of us. Sorry about that. Pardon me.
I don't memorize my own songs, man.
Thank you, Doug.
Oh, thank you, Doug. I'm so honored that everyone came out. I just feel so much joy. We really did not know. We just kind of, this was a roll with the punches sort of day. Oh my gosh. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I too was a Baptist preacher once. And Jesus said that the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. This tiny little mustard seed. And it's one of the little parables tucked away that I never thought was very exciting. I never paid much attention to it as a kid. And I didn't know what a mustard seed was. I'm like, okay, so the kingdom of God tastes like a hot dog. I don't know. But the whole point of that is that the kingdom of God is tiny, like this group of people right here, in a very red state, a blue dot in a red state, right? And the reality that Jesus seems to keep pushing all the time is that the kingdom of God doesn't spread from the top down. It doesn't spread because Congress did this or the president of the United Nations or whatever. But it's when just people like you and me just have one conversation and just love somebody a little better. I would venture to say the American equivalent of the mustard plant It's not actually a tree, it's a shrub in the Middle East, and it's kind of a nuisance. And it's a dandelion. It's a morning glory. It's ivy. It's a little annoying, and if you leave one dandelion in your yard, what happens to your entire block? This song is called Dandelions. I want to live in a world where no one goes to bed hungry, no one falls asleep scared. I think it's possible to be the agents of change in a world gone crazy. And it's true, the healing of the world comes like the smallest seed, like a candle flickering in the wind. It's true, love only takes over like a pesky weed, like an earworm that you just can't forget, like dandelions taking over the pyramid. I think it's not unrealistic to melt all the guns down, make plowshares out of ballistics. I see temples and mosques full of outcasts, churches and shuls giving land back. What's right in front of you, right hand? And it's true, the healing of the world comes like a maple seedling pushing through a crack in the stone. It's true, love only works like a pinch of yeast working its way through a batch of sourdough, like ivy covering over the Eiffel Tower. And the prophets say the world will be saved by a little child. God bless the grass, the scriptures are painted on the subway tiles, in tenement halls. Blessed are the poor, blessed are those who mourn. It's true, the only way to live is to lay it all down, let go and just surrender it all. It's true, wisdom is learning to lean and how to pierce through all the noise and just rest. Just rest, like morning glories taking over the Brooklyn Bridge. Like dandelions covering over the pyramids. I think it's possible to be the agents of change